Hi everyone, my name's Randolph Brazier and I'm Head of Innovation at the Energy Networks Association, and today I'm going to talk to you about the role of DSOs in a decentralised future and especially have a bit of a focus on flexibility markets. So for those of you who don't know us, at the ENA we represent the gas and electricity networks in the UK and Ireland at both transmission and distribution. So in red at the top there you've got our electricity members with distribution on the left and transmission on the right, and down at the bottom in yellow you've got the gas networks. It's also key to note that specifically within the distribution networks we have over 30 gigawatts of distributed generation currently connected, and in terms of distributed energy resources in general we're seeing a very large uptake in these technologies, not only with the generation and renewables, but also with electric vehicles in particular, which are rapidly increasing, and we've seen that this year in light of COVID. So within the electricity networks, we're moving from a traditional one-way power system where power is generated at a handful of large-scale generators, typically fossil-powered, across the country. Power is generated there and then flows in one direction down to homes and businesses. We're moving from that to a smart, flexible energy system where we've got generation and new users of energy connecting all across the network at different voltages, including a significant portion at distribution level, as I described on the previous slide. And this means power is flowing in all different directions. And this is not how the networks have been designed to operate. So it does pose a challenge to networks. However, this challenge also comes with an opportunity, because if we can transition the networks to this smart system, it will allow us to very much decarbonize the power grid, which will go a long way to helping us reach our net zero targets. So to address this challenge and to deliver this smart, flexible energy system, we at ENA created the Open Networks project amongst all of our electricity members. If you were to boil it down, this project is effectively the strategy for delivering the smart grid in the UK and Ireland. The project is specifically focusing on interactions between transmission and distribution, and also how we can transition our distribution networks into smart, active operators or system operators at that distribution level. This will help deliver a lot of benefits for customers, and it will enable the distribution networks to become much more efficient operators of their networks. The project is a key initiative of the government's Smart System and Flexibility Plan, which is effectively our smart grid policy in the UK. The project is explicitly written into this policy. It's also key to note that this is not a theoretical book-based project. We're very much taking a learn by doing approach. We're using a range of different trials and innovation projects to give us data and evidence for what works and what doesn't in the real world, on the real networks, when it comes to this smart, flexible energy system, and then feeding that back into this project to help reshape our strategy and refocus our path going forward. So a key aspect of transitioning the distribution networks from those passive asset owners to more active, smart system operators is enabling local flexibility markets. More and more of those distributed energy resources are becoming flexible, and this is critical to achieving net zero. You need flexibility to account for intermittent, low carbon and renewable technologies, both from a national perspective, but also at a local level. What do I mean by being flexible or flexibility? Effectively, it boils down to the ability to control or schedule demand and or generation. There's a few definitions that are floating about for flexibility, but this is effectively the gist of it. And as I said, this flexibility can be used locally to address local constraints and local congestion in the networks, or nationally from a transmission network perspective, either to solve transmission constraints and transmission congestion, or to help balance the overall energy system. All of our networks in Great Britain have made a commitment to flexibility. What this means is they are effectively running local flexibility markets. And these flexibility markets, in them, they are procuring flexibility services. And you might ask, why are they procuring these flexibility services? Well, they're procuring these services because if you have a congestion in the network somewhere, traditionally you would solve it by building more networks or reinforcing the network, as we say. However, we might be able to procure some flexibility from some of these DER assets in that local area, and that actually would prevent the need to actually build those networks. So what we've done is committed to flexibility. Whenever we have network congestion in a certain area, the network will go to the market, test the market to see if the market can provide those flexibility services in that area. And if the market can provide those flexibility services in a cost-effective manner, i.e. if they can provide the services at a lower cost than what the cost of reinforcement would be, then the networks have committed to procuring that service from that asset or assets. So the flexibility commitment is based on the customer journey. We've committed to looking at each of the different steps in the customer journey for providing flexibility to networks, as you can see on this slide here. And we're looking to harmonise and standardise these steps in the journey across the country to make it easier for people to connect their DER and provide flexibility services to networks. So we're looking at everything from making it easier to understand where our needs are and what the services are that we actually want to procure, through to consolidating and standardising the procurement process, and that includes this year releasing a common flexibility services contract across Great Britain, through to operational dispatch and how we can make that simpler and easier, and settlement, and also quite critically reporting. We want to make sure that what we're reporting on is consistent across the country, but also is very easy to access and is transparent. We very much support the recommendations of the government's Energy Data Task Force and their principle around presumed open data. So to further support the flexibility commitments, at ENA we set up a section under the Open Networks project on our website called Flexibility in Great Britain. This is a bit of a starting point, a single entry point for providing flexibility services in Great Britain. It's got a range of different sections and a range of different areas that are useful for people who want to provide flexibility services or learn more about these local energy markets. So we've got information on the commitment itself, which I mentioned. We've got a whole range of data on there around the size of these markets, where they're located, breakdown of by DNO on who's doing what and which services they're procuring, which I'll talk more about on the next slide. But as you can see on the screen there, at the current point in time, we have had over 2 gigawatts of local or DNO flexibility services tendered for in 2020. And at this point in time, in November, we have procured, or actually what I mean by that is we've actually contracted around about 1 gigawatt of our need. So that is really good progress based on previous years. That's a significant increase. But as you can see, we still haven't contracted all of what we need. You can also find the National Grid flexibility services on our website and information about that. So National Grid similarly procures flexibility at a transmission level. We also have some information on that on the same section of the website. We've also got a timeline with associated links into the market platforms, where we basically have each of the DNOs on the screen, and we then have a timeline of when their procurement cycles are open for flexibility services, when they close, when the assessment is, and when they report back the results. And that includes links of how you can get to those marketplaces and ultimately bid into those local flexibility markets that the DNOs are running. So as I indicated on the previous slide, we have a lot of data on that page, which demonstrates the size of the markets, which of the DNOs is procuring what and when. But here's a little bit of a summary. So as you can see across the top there, we're procuring 4 real power products, effectively scheduled constraint management, pre-fault constraint management, post-fault constraint management, and longer term restoration. And also some of the DNOs have started dabbling in procuring reactive power flexibility services. I should say that these stats here are for the DNOs in Great Britain only and don't include the National Grid transmission figures. So on the website you can see the breakdown per DNO, but you've got the industry totals there on this particular screen. And as you can see, we're seeing a steady increase across the years. So we started back in 2018, around about midway through 2018, relatively small scale, increasing in 2019, and now in 2020 you can see there's been quite a significant increase, and that was a direct result of our flexibility commitment that we talked about in the slides earlier. As I said before, we are still not procuring all of the flexibility that we need, or we're not contracting all of the flexibility we need, I should say. So we had this year, in 2020, over 2 gigawatts has been tendered for, and to date, in November, we've contracted over 1 gigawatt of that. So there's still, you can still see a gap there. We're still not getting all of what we need. There's a number of reasons for this, and it varies quite significantly across the country. In some areas, we're getting more than 100% of what we need. You know, it's a very competitive liquid market. And in these areas, there's obviously a lot of flexible DER in those areas. However, in other areas, we're not getting anything of what we need. And, you know, that may not necessarily be because there's no DER there. There might still be some there, and they just may not know about it, for example. So it is highly geographical, and it really varies across the country. However, there are a number of ways that we can increase the liquidity in these markets, signpost them better, and get more people involved. And that's what we're doing under the Open Networks project. We're trying to get all our members together and get more liquidity into these markets. So one of the things that we did last year was we created those 4 common real power products. So real power flexibility services that we're procuring. That has really helped matters because now it's a standard approach across the country. And I see that being standardized for reactive power as well in the future. We're providing better visibility and ease of access for our needs. So we're better signposting where in the country we need help and how much help we need. So we're saying this postcode, we need this much help during these periods. We've standardized the contractual terms, as I said earlier. We're removing as much exclusivity on contracts as we can. We're doing better consistent reporting and monitoring, and that includes making the data available on ENA's website in spreadsheet format. We're lowering barriers to entry, i.e. we're not being sizist. We're trying to remove some of the barriers as to how big you need to be in terms of if you're DER participating in these markets. We're trying to better coordinate with the transmission level markets and wider energy markets to make sure that people can stack revenues across markets. We're being more open with data, and most critically, we're engaging better with stakeholders and signposting our work better, making it easier for people to understand what we want, when we want it, and how they can get involved. So that's all from me today, guys. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to find out more info about the project, please get in touch with us at that link there. Join up to our mailing list, or feel free to contact me directly on my email there as well. Thank you very much for listening.